There is a mighty wheel churning in the universe, moving us all forward, and it is each of our responsibilities to pay our respects to that fate. Worlds will live, and worlds will die, and evil will carve its way into the innocent. Good people will do good acts and suffer all the same. And everywhere, girls will be born with their eyes open to the hate ahead of them, and they will wonder if their voice will be heard above the screams. And in that moment of doubt, they will learn, as I have learned, of the legend of Supergirl, who lost everything and kept on walking. Then they will settle themselves, content in their power, knowing someone out there has survived the storm. That tomorrow, when malice will make its attempts and help is begged from the heavens, there is a woman waiting.
I'm back. By unpopular demand, it's me. Being a DC fan feels especially rewarding these days. In late 2022, writer and director James Gunn, renowned for his work at Marvel, was appointed alongside Peter Safran as the new co-CEOs of DC Studios. Before this, DC spent a decade mired in its own self-inflicted crisis known as the DC Extended Universe. Their unsuccessful attempt to mirror Marvel's interconnected MCU with a sprawling roster of linked films. As the DCEU declined, new leadership brought a reboot plan, culminating in James Gunn releasing a video announcing their initial slate of films and TV series under the DCU umbrella. TV series such as Creature Commandos, Lanterns, and Amanda Waller Show, and Booster Gold were all announced, alongside films like Superman, Swamp Thing, Batman the Brave and the Bold, and The Authority. Creature Commandos was the first TV series to premiere, followed by the highly anticipated Superman film, written and directed by James Gunn himself. In recent months, additional projects have been announced. Several films and TV series are currently in various stages of production, apart from the Batman, the Brave, and the Bold, because they definitely merged the Matt Reeves Batman movies into the DCU. I just can't prove it! It's safe to say that the DCU came in with an ambitious plan, but has definitely started off strong, with the Superman film being very well received, bringing in over $600 million at the global box office. Now we all impatiently await what comes next in the DCU, and I'm sure that some of you eagle-eyed viewers have noticed that there's one project I left out. What am I for? And I'm sure that some of you eagle-eyed viewers out there have noticed that there's one project that I left out when listing off the current slate of DCU projects. If you're one of those people, then welcome to the concept of building tension for your viewers. I am of course referring to what is currently scheduled to be the second film in the DCU, that being Supergirl, written by Anna Nogueira and directed by Craig Gillespie. Look, I know I probably mispronounced those names, just feel free to make fun of my eyebrows in the comments all you want. I deserve it. I get it. I'm sorry. If you're wondering why I chose to single out the Supergirl movie, well, then that seems pretty foolish given the title and thumbnail of this video, and just look at me! Out of all the currently slated projects for the DCU, I can confidently say that I am most excited for the Supergirl movie. Because I happen to be a massive fan of the comic series that it's adapting, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. For those of you who are unaware, in 2021, comic book writer Tom King, who we will get to in a moment, trust me, wrote an 8-issue standalone Supergirl series that eventually went on to be nominated for both Eisner and Hugo Awards. For my non-comic reading audience out there, that's a pretty big deal. The Hugo Awards have been known to recognize famous sci-fi literature and handed out awards to books such as Dune, Neuromancer, Ender's Game, and many more. The Eisner Awards have basically acted as the Academy Awards, but for comics, handing out awards to books such as Watchmen, Mouse, The Sandman, etc. Now, I'm not trying to sound like the kind of guy that thinks awards matter in the grand scheme of things, but the point I'm trying to make is that Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow was given a lot of recognition for its high-quality storytelling. It's one of my favorite comic series I've personally ever read, and the fact that it's getting an adaptation of any kind is enough to get me excited. I mean, hell, it's being directed by the same director behind I, Tonya and Lars and the Real Girl, and Supergirl herself is being played by House of the Dragon star Mommy Alcock, who ended up making her debut at the end of the Superman movie. Spoilers for Superman! Sorry. And from the very little that we've seen of her portrayal so far, I can proudly say that it looks like we're in good hands. The film is currently scheduled to release on June 26th of next year, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of fans when I say that it can't come soon enough. Now, with all that being said, I'm sure you guys might have one question on your mind. Hey Mick, yeah, you guys can call me Nick, because we're tight like that. What the hell is this book even about? Well, my friends, lucky for you, you managed to find the perfect segue into this video's topic. I'm gonna take you guys through the story of Woman of Tomorrow step by step to prepare you guys for the film. There will be very heavy spoilers, so I'm gonna warn you now. If you don't wanna know anything and instead wanna go into this movie completely blind, turn off the video. However, I also suggest that you just go pick up the book yourself and experience the story firsthand. But if you're someone who refuses to read books and instead likes to listen to someone on the internet summarize them, psst, you're real as f for that, I'm not gonna lie. Then this video is for you. With that being said, I think we should dive into this book. I wanna make sure I do it justice because this book happens to mean quite a lot to me, and you're gonna see why. I don't know how long this video is gonna be, sorry, but hopefully you guys just tag along for the ride like you always do. Thank you for all the support, I love you guys. Thanks for 2,000 subscribers. I don't know where you guys are coming from. Anyway, with all that being said, all jokes aside, here's why you should be excited for the Supergirl movie. Hey, sorry, we're not gonna do that just yet. Here's why. Before we dive into the story, I feel that I have a responsibility to talk about its writer, first and foremost. Let's talk about Tom King for a moment. The comic book industry has a fair share of controversial writers, but Tom King is a very special case for a few reasons. Tom King is responsible for some of my favorite comics of all time. This includes his Mr. Miracle series from 2017, and of course, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. However, he's also responsible for some of the more negatively received series over the past few years. His run on Batman was met with overwhelming amounts of fan backlash, as well as his event book Heroes in Crisis. Both books were heavily criticized due to the belief that King had a little to no understanding of the characters he wrote about on a fundamental level, instead bending them to fit his personal vision. He's also been known to have a history of not knowing how to properly write female characters, which is easy to see in books like his Wonder Woman run or his recent Jenny Sparks series. One of my biggest complaints toward Tom King is his lack of personal touch when it comes to writing and formatting his books. Tom King is clearly a massive Watchmen fan, and he has dedicated his life to making sure that readers know that by taking the book's famous 9-panel grid and inserting it into his own work without understanding what makes that specific format work for that story. Tom King feels as though he spends more time copying and pasting the techniques of famous comic book writers than growing his own unique style. However, this is unfortunately small potatoes when it comes to people's critiques toward Tom King. The reason for that is King has an infamous history of inserting propaganda into his books. When you dive into why King chooses to write the way he does, you may start to come across a very common complaint online that honestly kind of explains just about everything I mentioned before. You see, here's the thing about Tom King. For the record, I'm not the first person to say this whatsoever. I'm also not the person who's qualified to be teaching you any of this information. I'm just a YouTuber who talks about comic books. If you want to learn more about Tom King yourself, then I highly suggest that you do your own research. But from what I've been able to gather, Tom King is kind of a war criminal. Now, with all of this in mind, I'm sure you're probably asking why I think Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is as good as it is. Now, this is my own personal opinion, but I believe that this book is one of the few exceptions to Tom King's work that doesn't suffer from any of the issues that we just mentioned. This book feels unique rather than a copy and paste of the works of Alan Moore or Frank Miller. The female characters in this book have actual depth and are treated with genuine respect for a change. It feels like King actually had something to say with this story, and it was clearly enough for me to grow a passion for it that led to me making this video. As you can probably tell, This video is one of my longest, which means I have a lot to talk about regarding this book. Now that this very long and complicated intro is out of the way, please feel free to sit back, relax, and follow along as I take you through the cosmic odyssey that is Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, written by Tom King and illustrated by Bilquis Evely. Also, side note, I haven't made a video in a very long time. I'm sorry!
My father, whose name I will not record here, for I do not wish it learned, did not die a dignified or honorable death. A criminal and a thief and a liar, who at the time identified himself as Krem and claimed the Yellow Hills as his place of origin, stabbed him through with a coppice blade. Krem had come upon our rock farm the day before, requesting shelter and a meal, which he was granted by my kind and godly family. After he woke in the morning, he got into words with my father on the subject of our new king. These words were ended when Krem unsheathed his weapon. My dear father was unarmed. This is Ruthai Marai Knoll, a young daughter in a family full of men who one day came across the corpse of her beloved father. Hell-bent on finding revenge for the man who raised her, Ruthai was surprised to learn that her family decided against tracking down his killer, instead remaining home tending to their land. With that in mind, she took the blade which stole the life of her father and began her journey to find a great warrior who can help her track down Krem of the Yellow Hills and take his life once and for all. Little did she know a simple crave for vengeance would lead her down a path that would challenge her both physically and mentally, unlike anything she's ever experienced before. Ruthai meets with a warrior at a tavern who she believes may be fit to neutralize Krem. However, upon further discussion, the warrior plots to steal her blade and leave her behind. This leads to a scuffle that grabs the attention of one of the drunken customers. This heavily intoxicated patron just so happens to be Kara Zor-El of Krypton, aka Supergirl, the cousin of Superman. She's here to celebrate her 21st birthday and get drunk due to the planet's red sun, allowing her to temporarily lose her powers. However, though she is without her godlike abilities, she can still easily defend herself as the warrior attempts to belittle her. Kara overpowers the warrior, taking back Ruthai's blade and stands over him triumphant, until she drunkenly passes out. Kara awakes to the care of Ruthai, clearly hungover and only focused on making sure she doesn't spew across the room. Ruthai introduces herself and addresses the reason she chose to help Kara. Not only did Kara come to her aid, but she also appears to acquire the traits necessary to join Ruthai on her quest to track down Krem of the Yellow Hills. In other words, Supergirl is the only being capable of helping Ruthai find vengeance for her father. Kara declines Ruthai's offer, proclaiming in the simplest of terms that killing people is bad. So she begins her journey home, leaving Ruthai to make a difficult choice. She chooses to follow Kara, dedicated to acquiring her help, facing harsh tides and heavy winds until finally meeting with her once more. Kara tries to convince Ruthai that she needs to look for justice and not vengeance. In her own words, life is about compassion, not fury. She knows what it's like to lose someone, but Ruthai, overcome with grief, refuses to accept her words of advice. Before they can continue, Kara is shot with a poisonous arrow by a mysterious shooter, revealed to be Krem of the Yellow Hills, followed by the warrior from the tavern from earlier. Crypto the Superdog comes to Kara's defense, but Krem unfortunately fires another poisonous arrow which takes him out of the fight. Supergirl's anger is enough to power her to retaliate, but after Crypto's whimpers for help take her attention, Krem steals her ship and flees like a coward. Kara, Ruthai, and Crypto are left behind, injured and without transport, while Krem of the Yellow Hills makes his escape into the vast, unknown galaxy.
In between the events of the first and second chapter, Supergirl and Ruthai manage to find aid after the attack by Krem of the Yellow Hills. When it's revealed to them that Krypto was shot with a poison arrow, they come to realize in order to cure him, a sample of the poison must be retrieved, which leads Supergirl to accept Ruthai's offer in tracking down Krem. Due to Supergirl's lack of a ship and the planet's red sun depowering her, in order for the two to travel, they must spend the next few weeks on board a vessel for public transport across the galaxy. This chapter does little to progress the story since we spend it all on the vessel, but it gives our two main characters a chance to connect and get to know each other a little bit more. This chapter actually contains one of my favorite moments in the entire book, and it ends up taking place after Supergirl defended the vessel against a cosmic space dragon, which was beautifully illustrated by Bill Casevole, with glorious colors by Mateus Lopes. For those of you wondering how Supergirl managed to use her powers, she was able to find red kryptonite pills, which in the DC universe is capable of granting Kryptonians with random abilities or transforming them into powerful beings. Throughout this chapter, Supergirl repeatedly finds herself defending Ruthai from harm or harassment, and in the calm scene that follows her battle with the dragon, she even finds herself teaching Ruthai something very minuscule but revolutionary to her. We survived the dragon that day, and many other travails in the days to come as we continued on our unpalatable quest. I see little use in providing each and every detail of the travel. I wish there to be enough space in the tome to touch upon events that brought us ever closer to our malediction. There is, however, one moment that is of essential importance in understanding what came after. It occurred at, of all places, a rest station of no name that I recall, and it began as most things begin when you're dealing with Supergirl, with a moment of kindness. There's an entire page in the book dedicated to Supergirl teaching Ruthai how to simply wash her hands. Something so second nature to a lot of us that we often take for granted, but to Ruthai, who grew up in an environment that was much more physically demanding and arduous, she finds it to be a blessing. The thing that I find so powerful about this scene is that Supergirl doesn't treat Ruthai like she's lesser for not knowing how to do it. Instead, she's patient with her and carefully walks her through the important steps. Even though this chapter lacks momentum in pushing the story forward, it greatly benefits by allowing readers to spend a little more time with Supergirl and Ruthai. When I think about Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, this scene is often the first that jumps to my mind, along with the other very important one which we will get to later. It's a story about a woman leading a young girl by example. It's about how important a role model Supergirl can be, but also how she pushes through her own struggles in order to be that role model. The scene ends with a tease at what's to come regarding Supergirl's backstory. I'm sure some of you might be thinking her backstory is pretty self-explanatory, but I can assure you that this book adds multiple layers to it that will leave more of an impact than before. This chapter acts as more of a calm before the storm. In the following chapters, we will find these two facing challenges larger than either of them have ever faced before. Whether or not they can persevere together is unknown, but for now, we know that there is a lot of road left to tread. Chapter 2 concludes with our protagonist finally arriving on a planet with a yellow sun, which grants Supergirl back her powers. It's here where they officially begin their hunt for Krem of the Yellow Hills. Although there is a clear display of hope, Supergirl and Ruthai find themselves completely unaware of the upcoming events that will change their lives for better or for worse. Supergirl and Ruthai journey to the city of Maypole, where they begin looking for clues pertaining to Krem's whereabouts. Unfortunately, our duo finds themselves struggling to get through the townsfolk of blue aliens, who seem to antagonize their every action. Though they try their best to remain kind, their patience is put to the test. Everyone from Maypole's lawmen to tenants to waitresses seem to find their presence bothersome, and refuse to answer any hard-hitting questions, which puts our hero's quest to a sudden halt. When they attempt to sleep through the night, the two are attacked by mysterious shooters. Supergirl is able to shield Ruthai from the gunfire, and it's here where she begins to realize just how dangerous this mission for Krem truly is. This isn't just a grudge match. It's a matter of life and death, but luckily, she has the Girl of Steel at her side. After catching the shooters, Supergirl concludes that they were sent by the city of Maypole in an attempt to scare them away. However, this seems to have the opposite effect as they decide to dig deeper into what is now a city-wide conspiracy. Just outside the perimeter of Maypole, after hours of searching for something suspicious, they manage to discover what appears to be a boneyard of a dead civilization. These people, or what remains of them, seem to have been buried, hidden underground for who knows how long. But why? Supergirl interrogates the mayor of Maypole, and it's here where they unravel the horrible secrets of Maypole's past. Before Supergirl and Ruthie arrived, the city of Maypole was apparently being shared by two races, the Blues and the Purples. The Blues were the wealthier and more abundant race who seemingly forced the Purples out of Maypole into a small village they labeled Purple Town. It remained this way until the Brigand arrived. We learned that the Brigand are an unholy gang of men who thirst for blood and hunger for unjust violence, and they began to set their sights on the people of Maypole. The catch being that killing can be a costly hobby, so they have a tendency to offer their victims a way out. Since the Blues didn't have a satisfactory amount to pay, their fate appeared to be sealed. We then learned that Krem of the Yellow Hills intervened, offering a compromise. The Blues will give up whatever currency they have, and they will throw in the evisceration of Purple Town in hopes of receiving some enjoyment out of the killing of the innocents. This offer was enough to satisfy the Brigand, and they even allowed Krem to join their ranks. Krem and the Brigand then committed genocide, poaching the Purples into extinction before leaving the planet. Upon learning this, Ruthie and Supergirl are shocked and overwhelmed at the events that occurred before their arrival. How could one man find it easy enough to offer up the lives of hundreds, maybe thousands of innocent men, women, and children, all for his own enjoyment? On top of that, how could an entire civilization of people choose simply to look the other way? Have they no guilt? No shame? This all forces Ruthie to come to grips with the gravity of their current situation. I was not born naive, nor have I ever taken comfort in the practice of naivety. From the moment I tasted this life's air, I was cognizant that evil was extant, that it was waiting and willing. But in that street that day in the small town, having heard that story, I was indeed sideswiped. For that day I learned the truth of all things. Just as every man has two faces, so does every place. And you can spend your days knowing just where you are and still be hopelessly lost. A lonely baby finds itself wallowing in its own tears, crying out in desperate need for help. When a pair of hands finally reach down to help it, we pull back to reveal Supergirl and Ruthie, both bewildered by the horrors that surround them. Hundreds, if not thousands, of dismembered corpses cover the land. Whatever happened to them, they clearly didn't stand a chance. Our heroes travel elsewhere to visit a wounded man who's unable to even feed himself. While Supergirl helps, he tries to recount the events that led to the genocide of his people and the death of his friends. The man calls back to the moment he unfortunately came face to face with Krem of the Yellow Hills, and how he witnessed him brutally murder an innocent man. It got to a point that he began to confuse his friend's cries for help with his own. What follows is a series of events involving Supergirl and Ruthie going from planet to planet, coming across the graveyards of dead civilizations, and the grieving citizens that were lucky enough to survive by the skin of their teeth. What we also see is a series of moments where Supergirl volunteers to help in any way she possibly can. She uses her super speed to help dig graves for those whose lives were lost. She helps feed the helpless and hungry, and she allows a grieving warrior to take her rage out on her, thanks to her invulnerability. The moment that gets to me the most is what happens immediately after, where she embraces the sobbing warrior after having been beaten literally into the ground. This issue is undoubtedly the most heartbreaking in my opinion, and it finds ways to top itself with more emotion the further along we read. The scene that stuck out to me the most was when Supergirl came across found footage of one of the Brigand's attacks, and willfully decided to watch, refusing to allow Ruthie to join her. She's still just a kid after all. When Supergirl returns, having bared witness to the horrors of the attacks, she is drawn with a perfect display of shock and terror that tells us everything we need to know. The issue gets to a point where Supergirl becomes so fueled with empathy and anger that she flies into the nearest sun, allowing herself to feel the burn, suppressing the forces inside her. Ruthie explains how she believes Supergirl has lived her life moving through pain and sorrow. She describes her as someone selfless enough to go through great pain, only to ask for others if they need help, with little care for herself. She can take the pain, she can fight the battles we can't, and she knows nothing else. After witnessing the aftermath of countless genocides, our heroes finally take a moment to sit and ponder their next move. They've seen firsthand what the brigand is capable of, and what kind of evil festers within Krem of the Yellow Hills. Supergirl tries to convince Düzey not to join her on the rest of the mission, fearing this experience is tarnishing what little purity she has left. However, Düzey is adamant on continuing the quest. I had expected our quarreling to persist, as it had done many times before and would do many times after. Each of us doggedly insisting on who was properly responsible for bringing justice to this unjust life. Two grave mules fussing over which will pull the load. But that day, in the stark contrast to many others, after weeks of death and desperation, I suppose Supergirl was just a touch tired. Even a grave mule will buck on you if the load is too large. A well-treaded rock farmer knows you're better off harnessing two to the yoke than dealing with all that fuss. So instead of answering, she bent down, and I put my weight on her, and we flew off, up and away. We find ourselves witnessing the carnage that follows Krem of the Yellow Hills. Supergirl and Düzey have finally managed to track him down, and have him literally within their grasp. However, Krem reveals the ace up his sleeve, a Mordru globe, capable of transporting whoever gets sucked in across space and time. Supergirl and Düzey are caught off guard and unfortunately can't resist the pull of the globe. How did Krem get his hands on it? You know? Great question. Anyway, even though our heroes were closer than ever before to apprehending Krem, they instead found themselves overwhelmingly sidetracked as they are teleported to a planet light years away. This isn't even the worst part. What humbles our heroes is the fact that this planet just so happens to have a green sun, one made of kryptonite. This doesn't just depower Supergirl, but it is actively weakening her. The sun hasn't even reached noon yet. They still have 9 hours before it sets over the horizon. Not only do our heroes have no way off this planet for the time being, but Supergirl has no way to defend themselves from the vicious creatures that roam this terrifying planet. All they have at their disposal is a sword and their desire to seek sanctuary immediately. As the hours pass, Supergirl grows weaker, miserable, and her mood becomes unstable. Her pride gets the best of her as she tries to convince Düzey to let her go to the nearest body of water, but Düzey stands her ground, aware that if they leave, they will never make it out of here alive. Düzey finds herself helpless, trying her best to be there for her, all while knowing she's not enough to protect them both for much longer. As the sun finally begins to set over the horizon, a violent dinosaur-like monster approaches hungry. Düzey, with what little strength she has left, fights not just for her life, but Supergirl's as well. This battle feels as if it's lasting forever, and the sun feels like it's refusing to go down. As Düzey puts everything she's got into standing her ground, she prays for the sun to set. Let the sun set, she says. Let the sun set, that's all I ask for. As the beast overpowers Düzey and begins to mangle her, she begins to feel as if her prayers have fallen on deaf ears. For the sun remained stubbornly above the hills and death was assured. Luckily, at the very last second, the sun falls behind the horizon, and Supergirl interferes, laying waste to the terrifying beast, saving Düzey and herself. With the kryptonite sun finally set, she regains her power, and the two decide to instantly pick up where they left off with Krem of the Yellow Hills. Later, that bull-headed green star finally conceded to the horizon, and Supergirl's strength returned. We had made it through the day and into the night, which I suppose is all one ever does. Nevertheless, I was, and I remain, grateful to have once again completed that barbarous journey.
As a distant planet was destroyed by old age, a scientist placed his infant son within a hastily devised spaceship, launching it toward Earth. When the vehicle landed on Earth, a passing motorist, discovering the sleeping babe within, turned the child over to an orphanage. Attendants, unaware of the child's physical structure was millions of years advance of their own, were astounded at the feats of strength. When maturity was reached, he discovered he could easily leap an eighth of a mile, hurdle a 20-story building, raise tremendous weights, run faster than an express train, and that nothing less than a bursting shell could penetrate his skin. Early, Clark decided he must turn his titanic strength into channels that would benefit mankind, and so was created Superman, champion of the oppressed, the physical marvel who had sworn to devote his existence to helping those in need.
Kara Zor-El of Krypton was not so lucky. During Krypton's final days, Kal-El, who would later be named Clark Kent, was sent off-world, leaving his entire species behind in hopes of living out a brighter future. His older cousin Kara was left to make do with what little time she had left. In Ruthai's own words, she wasn't the baby who went off in the rocket. She was the schoolgirl who knew Krypton as home, family, and refuge. Unfortunately, as we already know, all of that was about to come to an end. This issue of Woman of Tomorrow simply asked the question, what exactly does that do to a person? How do you lose everything and yet continue to move forward? How in the world did she manage to go through the end of her world and still become the Supergirl we all know and love? This issue begins with Supergirl finally tracking down Krem of the Yellow Hills after temporarily being thrown off his trail. However, Krem was able to take hold of another Mordru globe. Faced with the same danger as before, Supergirl knows what to expect. And with the help of a Pegasus named Comet, she rides off as fast as a speeding bullet while the globe chases them through the cosmos. While this happens, we transition back and forth between present day and the final days of Krypton before its extinction. We witness firsthand what exactly Kara went through as her planet crumbled around her. She watched friends die, civilians perish, and children losing their lives before they can even really begin. We hear about how Krypton was a planet that held thousands of generations. Epics were written, idols were worshipped, wars were waged, children were born, dead were mourned, heroes were celebrated, stars were discovered, histories were researched, lands were conquered, families were raised. It was a planet that had grown and evolved like ours with a beating heart. Krypton had so much culture, beauty, mystery, and plenty of stories left to be told. Kara was raised to one day add on to those stories, and maybe tell them to children of her own one day. Tell them about the beauty she saw with her very own eyes. One of those beauties was the sight of a tree with red and blue leaves, swaying in the wind. Krypton had many wonders, but that was one that caught her eye the most. There's the classic phrase that Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, Krypton did not die in a day. The gods were not that kind. Out of the initial explosion, Argo City split from the planet's surface and was able to survive a little longer, floating through the void of space and preserved by a layer of atmosphere. Most of its population died in the breakage, and this included Kara's mother. While she passed away, Kara told her about the tree with red and blue leaves, unable to accept her loss. Her death and the deaths of many others ended up being a result of radiation poisoning. So Kara helped her father Zor-El work out a plan to plant lead shielding into the city's surface. People were dying and the task was massive, so she worked day and night while others gave up. Argo City managed to survive a full year, floating recklessly through space. Since they couldn't control its direction, they relied on only prayer and fate. A cosmic storm eventually came, raining meteors down upon the city, causing untold destruction. The lead shielding was compromised, countless lives were lost, and that was the last time Kara would ever rely on prayer and fate. When Kara asked her father if there was hope, he simply replied, "There is always hope for you." There was no way to rebuild their shielding, which meant that the radiation would inevitably wipe out the city's remaining population in a month's time. Zor-El would then finally resort to using what little material he had left and build a rocket for his daughter to flee, just like her cousin. "It will carry you," he said. "We will die. You will live. Tomorrow will come soon enough," he said. "And I will pass, and this place will pass, and the stars will fall, and the suns will rise. And you will be a woman looking back on the many decades of your life. the terrors and the triumphs. And perhaps you will think of your father then, and perhaps you will remember what has happened. Whatever pain you have endured, you are still my little girl. For the next month, as the radiation poisoning claimed the remaining bodies in the doomed Argo City, Zor-El would finish the shuttle that would save Kara. In Ruthai's words, it was her third time watching the light of life fade around her. Her third time hearing her neighbors grasp for their last breaths. Her third time collecting bodies for mass burial. Her third time watching her world die. She was 14. Back in the present day, Kara and Comet continue to just barely outrun the Mordru globe. The chase expands far beyond the known universe. It goes so far that they manage to enter a realm of time where the Big Bang has yet to reach, chasing through literal nothingness. Fortunately, where there is nothingness, magic has no effect, meaning the globe is practically useless. Kara expels the globe and makes her way back to Krem of the Yellow Hills. We intercut with the final flashback to Kara's days in Argo City. The last days of Argo City. Her father Zor-El has prepared her journey, and the two say their goodbyes. We just witnessed the horrific events of Krypton's fall from Supergirl's perspective in graphic detail. Kara Zor-El was a teenager who had lost everything around her, and was forced to move on without any sense of choice. Her world wasn't just taken away from her, it was ripped away from her, even though she worked until her hands bled to try and save it. How does someone move on from that? How does someone continue to live after something like this? It is said that at times a person can feel the weight of the world on their shoulders. This is a metaphor, a cliche chuckled about without thought to its meaning. Just another way to say we are bearing some responsibility for our actions. But with Supergirl, it was as real as the yellow in her hair. Every day of her life, she carried that dead planet with her. Every day she walked through the many valleys of death. She felt its weight driving her into the dirt, pushing her down until she was so tired she could not think of anything but letting go and sitting down and being buried underneath its rock and rubble. And every day she kept on walking. Be good, her mother said. There is always hope, her father had said. But I do not believe that this is what drives her inevitably forward. No, like many whose childhoods were ripped away from them, she is eternally searching for something. Perhaps justice. Perhaps explanation. Perhaps a tree outside her window with red and blue leaves and the wind that blows between them. What was once perceived as impossible has finally been achieved. Our heroes Supergirl and Ruthai have successfully managed to apprehend Krem of the Yellow Hills through great trial and error. They decide to take him to a planet where they tie him up to a tree. Ruthai and Comet stand guard, enjoying a moment of peace. But meanwhile, up in the sky, Supergirl waits for the brigand's arrival, in inevitable retaliation. As the merciless band of thieves and murderous men confronts Supergirl, she stands her ground, alone, ready for whatever fight they have to offer. The battle that waged between them and her was so eventful that it went on to be told in a tale known as the Battle of Capes. She fought tooth and nail against them for what felt like hours, and they managed to get a few good licks on her, despite her invulnerability. Meanwhile, on the shores of the planet below, Krem of the Yellow Hills decides to test Ruthai's patience. Finally, after endless days and nights which consisted of her craving his death, the man who murdered her father sits before her, defenseless and unable to escape. Before the events of this issue, Supergirl made Ruthai swear not to lay a hand on Krem while she was gone. However, that seemed to be too tall a task for the young girl, as she felt the overwhelming urge to draw her sword and finish Krem once and for all. Comet the Pegasus would try his best to set a divide between the two, convincing Ruthai to fight her urges and wait for Supergirl to return. Meanwhile, up in the sky, Supergirl continues her battle against the Brigand. Their methods are ruthless, and their will to keep fighting feels endless. When the Brigand would get the upper hand, Supergirl would find the will within herself to keep fighting, reminding herself of her life on Krypton, and the stories she still has. If she's gone, who will be left to tell them? Supergirl fought with every ounce of effort she had left, but unexpectedly the Brigand revealed their secret weapon, a kryptonite bullet. One shot would be enough to take her life. While all of this is happening, we rejoin Ruthai, Comet, and Krem as he decides to unveil the truth about what really happened to her father before his death. Up until this point, she believed that her father was killed for speaking ill against the king, but apparently, this wasn't the case. Krem explains that he chose to go her father out by telling a fake story that made fun of the king. Ruthai's father didn't laugh, but instead criticized Krem for telling such an awful tale. He objected Krem and demanded that he apologize and leave his land for good. Krem, unable to accept the fact that an insignificant farmer was making demands of a man such as him, decided to murder him in cold blood. Krem is aware of himself, makes no excuses or apologies, and simply chooses to believe that his life is worth more than anyone else's. We can see in Ruthai's eyes that this revelation doesn't please her. Not one bit. Suddenly, Comet becomes aware that Supergirl is in danger and contemplates going to help her. Ruthai tries to convince him that she will not touch Krem while he's gone. She swears on her father's grave that while he goes to save Supergirl, she will stay and watch Krem. Comet eventually accepts and flies off into the sky, leaving Ruthai finally alone with her father's killer. I said enough to convince him, and he backed away and took to the sky, leaving me alone with Krem of the Yellow Hills, the dastardly king's agent who had killed my honored father on his own land. I had traveled the stars searching for his dullard, and now there was nothing left between us besides the word I'd given to a horse. Now, you ever lied to a horse before? If you ain't had that experience, I do have some obligation to warn you. It can guilt you something awful, but you get over it soon enough. At the very last second, Comet shoots into the panel, literally faster than a speeding bullet, taking the kryptonite shot for Supergirl, saving her life. The kryptonite depowers Comet as he transforms back into a human. For context, Comet was once a human who was magically transformed into a winged Pegasus by the sorceress Circe. I know this disrupts the pacing of the video, which is especially sad seeing as we're in the middle of the book's climax, but I knew that if I didn't explain why Comet was suddenly a human, then I might confuse some of you. Anyway, back to the video. Also, is this video getting too long? It feels too long, I don't know. Not only does Comet revert back to human form, but the kryptonite bullet unfortunately pierces his heart. As he collapses to the ground, Supergirl, enraged, uses whatever strength she has left to force herself free from her restraints. As the remaining members of the brigade look on in terror, we see a fire in Supergirl's eyes that we haven't seen before. What happens next is all left up to the imagination. Meanwhile, back down on the planet's surface, Ruthai frees Krem of the Yellow Hills from his bindings and allows him to stand before her. To make it a fair duel, she places the blade she's carried with her all this way, the blade used to kill her father, directly in the middle, between herself and Krem. Whoever takes it first will have the advantage. Although Krem scrambles for the blade like a moth to a flame, Ruthai gets the drop on him, kicking him away. Although Ruthai seems to have been well trained, Krem is still a fierce warrior, and has been in many duels such as this before. The two trade blows before Ruthai finally manages to take hold of the blade while he's down. As Krem desperately tries to steal it from her grasp, she swings it toward him, chopping off his fingers. He bleeds in agony, all the while Ruthai recites tales of her father, practically preaching to Krem about the man whose life he had stolen. Ruthai strides through this encounter with what feels like great attention to detail. It's almost as if she's been preparing for this moment her whole life. Ever since the moment she stumbled upon her father with a sword stuck in his heart. This right here is all what it has been leading to. Every moment, every decision Ruthai has made so far has finally led her to this encounter. With her blade at the ready and her tale told, she prepares Krem for his journey into oblivion. He looks up at her, bleeding and wincing in agony, or maybe even fear. Now that he is finally face to face with his destiny, he is drained of all of his pride. Krem is left with the knowledge that all the pain and suffering he caused has led him to this painful day of judgment. With only seconds left to live, he watches as Ruthai readies her final swing of the blade, and as she pulls it back, she chooses to finally guide it down to its natural conclusion. And then, nothing. Ruthai freezes, barely able to process the harsh truth of it all. She stopped herself, but why? She lifts the blade up once more and tries to swing it across Krem's throat, but again, nothing. She tries again and again and again until finally, she breaks down. She shouts at herself, beyond confused. It should have been easy. Why can't she just kill him and be done with it? This is all she ever wanted. As she asks herself why over and over, she is met with a heartbreaking revelation. She can't bear to take another man's life. What is wrong with me, she asks. Why can't I kill you? And then, from the sky, she hears an answer, one much more upsetting than she imagined.
I don't know. Maybe you just need a little help.
Supergirl lands on the shore, holding the deceased body of Comet, both covered in blood. Her face tells us everything we need to know. She's just fought through hell, and even through it all, she still failed. She lost a dear friend. What was even the point? She takes Ruthai's blade from her, proclaiming that they finally reached the end. Right? Every question begins to run through Ruthai's head. What happened? Why did Comet have to die? What will happen to Crypto if they kill Krem? Because don't forget, in order to save him, they need a sample of Krem's poison. But it's here where Supergirl finally reveals the unexpected truth. Crypto is perfectly fine. He was apparently able to fight off the poison and survive the shot from the arrow. But why would she lie about that? Isn't that the entire reason she joined Ruthai on this quest in the first place? What is happening?
I don't understand.
Because you wouldn't listen to me. I could tell you were stubborn. I know stubborn well enough. You weren't going to learn that killing is wrong just by me saying it. You're going to waste the rest of your life chasing this bitch, dreaming about this worthless shit, like I would dream about Krypton. I had to show you. I took you with me, hoping you'd learn about, I don't know, something, but you didn't learn, did you? Which makes all the sense in the world, because I couldn't teach you, because I still dream of Krypton.
Supergirl lifts the sword for the final time, ready to finally put an end to Krem of the Yellow Hills and the carnage he's spread across the galaxy. Filled with pain, tragedy, loss, and deep, overbearing trauma, she chooses to expel it all from her heart in order to commit this final action, this final swing of the blade. However, Ruthai manages to pierce her mental shield, explaining that she learned something from all of this. Ever since her father was murdered, Ruthai could only see the world in black and white. She was more lost than ever before, losing every ounce of hope and purity stored within her. However, something seemed to have shifted after she met Supergirl. She reflects back on the previous chapters and realizes that Supergirl helped bring a bit of light into her darkness. She recalls the moment they met when she fought for her against the man who forced his power on her. The time she took out of her day to teach her how to wash her hands. The day they learned of Maypole and its great tragedy, and how she consoled her on the street. All the good deeds she offered as they met with the victims of the Brigand's reign of terror. The strength she regained when the kryptonite sun finally set. The way she outran magic itself. The comfort she gave Ruthai whenever they faced a great battle, knowing that as long as Supergirl was there, they would be safe. Ruthai comes to understand that Grace did not die with her father, although she lost all hope and believed there was no point left in the universe. When Supergirl came to her aid, she remembered that no matter how dark it gets, there will always be someone there to help you carry the load. As Ruthai convinces Supergirl to finally lower the blade, she finds herself overwhelmed with it all. The loss, the fear, the trauma. It all comes crashing down on her all at once, feeling too small for such a big universe. However, Ruthai does what Supergirl has been doing for her ever since the beginning. She grants her a moment of kindness. It's been years since that day on the beach, the day Ruthai overcame her craving for vengeance. Now she finds herself sitting on the porch of her home, now an old woman. As her silence is interrupted, she becomes aware and asks if a woman can ever get a moment's peace, to which we hear a response.
In my experience, Ruthai dear, no, I do not believe she ever can.
Supergirl and Ruthai reunite. Our heroes embrace before filling each other in on how their lives have been. Just a couple of old friends catching up, both finally at peace. They journey out into the fields, revisiting the site where Krem of the Yellow Hills took the life of Ruthai's father all those years ago. It's here where Supergirl reveals a Phantom Zone prism, which seemingly contains Krem. Ever since that day on the beach, Krem has been serving a sentence in the Phantom Zone, and today is the day he's finally scheduled to be released. Supergirl explains that over the last few hundred years, Krem has managed to see the error of his ways. He not only came to terms with his actions, but he took ownership of them, allowing himself to hold accountability. By the sound of it, it seems that he has turned over a new leaf, and is dedicating his life to doing better. Just goes to show you, there's always hope. The Phantom Zone prism released Krem, who appears to be an old man. He asks if it's finally over, and it's here where we immediately recognize that Krem is nowhere near the same as he was during his time with the Brigand. He's reformed. Supergirl welcomes him back with open arms, finally announcing that he's home. He's free. There's what appears to be joy in Krem's eyes as he takes in his surroundings, able to feel the fresh air once again. It also appears that he has laid his eyes on Ruthai. As soon as he does, he kneels before her, begging for forgiveness. He apologizes profusely for the damage he's caused her, and it's here where the two finally come face to face with what could be their one chance at closure.
It's too big, she said. We're too small. I knew they were my words said long ago at the edge of Maypole, but I could not fathom the meaning coming now from her lips, for surely she must see that nothing was outside of her reach. She did not further elaborate, and I did not ask her. Instead, she moved her sword swiftly through the air and stabbed down and through the chest of the kneeling Brigand. After it was done, she returned the bloody blade to my hand. And that is where I shall end this long story of Ruthai, Supergirl, and Krem of the Yellow Hills.
There are undoubtedly a lot of things that I could say about this book. However, I know this video is getting pretty long, so I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is one of the more impactful books I've ever read. Although I, as well as many fans, have various problems with its writer, I can't deny that this is definitely one of his biggest hits. The fantastic illustrations by Bilquis Evely perfectly tell this beautiful and sometimes heavy space odyssey with the most gorgeous colors by Matthias Lopes that instill so much spirit. The art feels like a perfect match for Supergirl, but also contrasts the darker themes of the story in a way that still gives it a lighthearted energy. The style of Evely's art feels heavily inspired by great sci-fi artists like H.R. Geiger and Mobius. Every character looks and feels unique. The setting of each planet all feels so full of life and history. The panel composition always feels intentional and well thought out. This book feels like it was well taken care of by everyone who was involved in creating it. Although this book happens to take place within the main DC Comics continuity, it still manages to tell a story that can be 100% standalone. You could honestly jump into this book totally blind and still enjoy it as much as the average comic reader. Tom King has been known to take advantage of the characters he writes by bending them to fit his stories, but I believe that this is one of the few cases where it greatly benefits his book's overall story. It's filled with original characters that you can immediately empathize with, and decides to dig deep into Supergirl's trauma in a way that we hadn't seen up until this point. Woman of Tomorrow is a beautiful story, both visually and emotionally, about how no matter how bad it gets, hope will always live on and continue to inspire others. It's about growing up and learning to move on from our darkest hours. It's about how just your simple existence can be enough to inspire so many people. And that is so damn beautiful to me. Supergirl is a wonderfully self-contained sci-fi fantasy about finding purpose, overcoming trauma, and learning to live with it, and pushing your way through an uncaring universe. By the time I reached the book's final pages and I got to see Kara Zor-El hundreds of years prior to the main story, I felt so incredibly proud of her. Comparing her to the way we found her in the beginning as a young lady desperate to numb her pain with alcohol, we see this new version of Kara who has finally learned how to live with her trauma, both mentally and visually growing into a woman that went on to become one of the universe's greatest heroes. She quite literally presents herself as the Woman of Tomorrow. And it was enough to bring tears to my eyes when I first read the ending. But the thing is, the discussions regarding this book are about to change dramatically, with the release of the new Supergirl movie releasing in 2026, starring Millie Alcock as the titular Woman of Tomorrow, directed by Craig Gillespie, and produced by DC Studios, co-founders James Gunn and Peter Safran, According to them, they've promised that each film in their slate of films and TV shows will have their own specific tone, as well as complete and total creative freedom, allowing the filmmakers to tell the best stories possible while also devoting a lot of time to post-production. I don't think I need to overstate just how exciting this has made me personally, but I would have loved to know how other fans who are anticipating the film feel about this. Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you indifferent? While I'm sure all those feelings are valid, I'm sure we can all admit how good it feels knowing that we've reached a new era in the world of comic book filmmaking. Not only are we allowing our storytellers to take the time they need to craft as good a story as they can, but we are putting these adaptations in the hands of people who love and care for the source material just as much as we do. This book tells us no matter what, there will always be hope, even in our darkest hours. It feels only fitting that after years of uncertainty regarding the comic book movie genre, that Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is inspiring hope in our hearts once again. And it's the reason why I believe that you should be excited for the Supergirl movie. I know I am.
That's right. The video is not over yet. Greetings, my friends. I know it has been quite some time. I just wanted to jump on here real quick because I didn't think the video was long enough. It's been about 3 months and some change, I think, since the Absolute Batman video. I know this video took quite a long time. I apologize for that, but I just wanted to thank you guys for sticking around and being patient with it, because I do think that this video was worthwhile. I think it's worth the amount of time that it took to complete, and I'm very proud of it, and I hope you guys enjoy it just a little bit, if not just a little bit, you know? If you hate it, I don't know, maybe I'll hang myself. I'm kidding, obviously. I'm mentally stable. All jokes aside, genuinely thank you all from the bottom of my heart. This has been truly the greatest honor, getting to make these videos for you guys. Just talking about stuff I like, stuff I love, in fact. I think the next video is gonna be a bit lower stakes. I think it's gonna be a lot shorter and a lot less serious. I know what it's gonna be about, and I'm very excited to talk about the stuff that it entails, but I will leave you guys guessing as to what it could possibly be. Tune in a few weeks, if not a month. I don't know. You guys are the best, genuinely. The amount of support and love and feedback that I've gotten from you guys has been overwhelmingly positive, and it just means the world to me knowing that there's an audience out there willing to listen to me ramble about genuinely pointless shenanigans. I want to thank my good buddy and emotional support lesbian, Lake, for voicing Kara Zor-El herself in this video. I love you, buddy. Thank you. I know you're busy. Let's hang out sometime, please. I knew from the moment I came up with the idea for this video, I wanted them to be the voice of Supergirl, because frankly, I couldn't imagine anybody else. So, you know, thank you for that, and thank you for putting Joe out of a job this video. He really wanted to play Supergirl. He doesn't have the range, I'm afraid. Okay, I don't want to keep you guys any longer. I just want you all to know that I love you very much. I'm very appreciative. But yeah, I got a lot of ideas. A lot of stuff is coming. You just gotta be patient with me. That's all I ask. I do know for a fact that I'm gonna hit the hay as soon as I hit the stop button on this video. As soon as I hit export, literally all I have to do after this is stop this recording, you know, cut it up a bit, and then just hit export on the video, and then I'm going right to bed. And maybe I'll wake up in the morning, maybe I won't. I don't know. Who am I to say? But yeah, in all seriousness, thank you guys so much. Tune in next time. I promise the next video will not take as long. Yeah, that's about all I can really say, I guess. I don't know what any of you are gonna take away from this video, but throughout all the time I've been working on it, all the doubts, all the decisions. The one thing I think anyone should take away from this video, no matter what, is what the book tells us, and that is purely just by you existing, you are inspiring so many people in so many ways. And if that keeps you going in the slightest, that's all that really matters, I guess. If this book told me anything, it was that. And it's been helping me out quite a bit throughout the making of this video, because it's been quite a challenge, this video, but that's what I love. I love when videos like these challenge me. I hope the next one challenges me in various other ways. Definitely by not making it an hour long. Jesus.